Hey there. Okay, thank you so much, Tara, for saying yes to spending a few minutes with me. It's so good to see you, and it feels like it's been a really long time. And weirdly, it's not even quite been a year.
Nope.
Just that time vortex. Um, so to get started, I'll let you introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And where do you live? Let's start there.
Okay, well, my name is Taura Livingston. I am a self-employed nonprofit consultant at this point, but have spent my entire career in nonprofit in the humanitarian service for several different large and small organizations. And I currently live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but originally from Minnesota.
Okay. So we actually, funnily enough, because my background, I have a strong nonprofit background. Like that was so much of my life prior to this life. And we didn't know each other in the nonprofit world. Like we were kind of like little bouncing around each other's orbits, but never actually came into each other's lives till after. So I know you, we know each other because of the Women of Color Culture Club.
Right?
You were a part of a cohort last year, 2021, May
Yep.
of 2021.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What was going on in your life then? If you can remember, it would have been about a year ago, kind of March, April of 2021. Yeah. What was going on?
So I had, I'm always a planner. So as a part of my 5-year plan many years ago, I had decided that when my youngest son, out of 5 children, graduated high school and was off to college, that I just wanted to make sure that I was being intentional about this next phase of my life, and making sure that it is giving back to me in a way that really fills me up and does not drain me. And so I'm going to contrast that a little bit. I appreciate my career because what it gave me and my family is stability and the ability to live and thrive in our lives. However, without children and being the person that I am, I knew I'd want more than that after my last child was up and out. So I had given my notice, a long notice at the nonprofit that I was at, and I had decided that I was going to start my own consulting company, helping small and medium nonprofits. I said October 31st was my last day. And so this came along right at this perfect time where I was making these big decisions, but not quite sure how I was going to execute it and really feeling kind of alone. I had been a part of some larger national women's organizations, small business organizations, but still it was a little bit distant and didn't 100% speak to me. So when I saw this, and I started hearing from people that I did know that did go through previous ones, I was like, this just might be what I need. And especially the fact that it's focused on women of color, because I do believe that we experience the world in a very different way than other people. And that needs to be honored.
So I find what was going on in your life to be of particular kind of interest because like the Women of Color Culture Club, it's not a business coaching thing. It's not like super structured, planny, Taurus, grounded, earthy
yes.
types, but it's not unstructured either. So I'm curious if you can recall, like, given that you were about to leave your career that you'd been working in for more than a decade and go out on your own, starting a business, like really stepping into entrepreneurship and all of the beauty and scariness that comes with that. And you felt like you were alone. It would have been very easy and completely understandable to look for a business coaching community or a business focused coach. What made you say yes to the Culture Club? given the nature of it being a little more intangible?
So I had studied, done tons of research. I already had so many connections in the way of helping to start my business, good solid advice, good solid resources. I did not have that that network of people that I could relate to as a woman of color, as somebody from, this community. I wanted something that was more like a sisterhood, and not something so focused on business. I mean, I think we all, like I said, experience the world very differently than others. And having that support when you feel like you're on an island, I had tons. We don't just speak in business language. We need our personal connections. We need to feel like there's a place to share and fill our cups and, support and be supported. And that doesn't revolve around what you're doing for work, So that's why I chose Women of Color Culture Club.
When I started held space for the very first cohort in 2019, I had no idea. I had no real plan, no real vision for what it could be or where it would go. It was absolutely about the thing that you just named that I was craving, community, a space to be in with other women, other people of color, non-male identifying. It wasn't even about I needed this full-on sisterhood, but it was I want to be around people who look like me, who have shared lived experiences in some way, shape, or form. As I was bopping around trying to figure out my shit when I started my business, there was very little of it in the community that you and I both lived in at the time. I don't live there anymore, but it was, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just create my own thing. And so then I tried to create a meetup for women of color entrepreneurs. And that was a big fat flop. That was so lame.
Right.
A lot of white ladies showed up.
Oh man, probably wanted a whole education from you.
What in the, and then eventually I kind of cultivated a little tiny community for myself. And it was I want to do more of this. And so then it was about creating what was the first cohort, and it was more goal focused back then. But through that learning, through that experience, it was this is rich and helpful. I can see that. Yeah. But it's there's still, it's something more, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it back then, but what I now know is that it needed to be a little less tangible. It needed to be more heart. Yes. It needed to be more about just being in community, but the Capricorn moon in me needed something tangible too. So it's it's slowly the structure, the building, the scaffolding started to emerge. And by the time you were in a cohort, that would have been a year and a half later. I think you were in cohort number 6 or 7. And it's even now, the current cohort that's in motion, number 9, we have our last session this week on Thursday. It just evolves. It's evolving from cohort to cohort. It's different. They're going through a different experience than you did, but it's all heart-centered. Right. And it is about being held in safe space to explore the things, whether it be about what am I even doing? I don't love the work that I do, and I do want to change jobs. I do want to change careers, or I don't even know. I just want something different. Absolutely. So but you can, and it's hard. I've always struggled with how to talk about it because it's hard to put my finger on. Absolutely. But I love hearing from someone who values structure and planning and systems, and that it spoke to this other side of you. Absolutely. Yeah. Since then, over the last 10 months or so, almost a year, what has changed for you? What's been happening since your time in the cohort?
I am really going, and it's funny that we're having this conversation now because I hear the voices of the women in that cohort constantly, because I'm going through this transition where I am eradicating the 9 to 5 mentality, the W-2, like you have to be productive, you got to do this, and I am feeling now the full weight of what that did to me, what that felt like, the stress, the constant, and I'm taking the words from the women in my group, my particular cohort, because not only some of us were experiencing the same thing, still a little afraid to kind of let go of that rigid structure into this vast unknown, but also the women that already done it. And we're talking about the freedom, they still had worries, just like we all do. They still had concerns, but the way they lived their lives was not so focused on work. And this has been like an aha moment for me. So right now, because I launched my business November 1st, and I did not take enough time in between, I will say this, to decompress and then start ramping up, which it's because it's my head. You got to be productive. You got to do. What do you mean break? You're not on vacation, and so now it's happening organically. And regardless of whether I want it to or not, I am going through this transition where I am structured. I can be rigid, but I'm letting go of some of those things, but it's not painful and it's not anxiety ridden because I have these voices. I laid the foundation. That's what I feel like I did for myself, is I laid a very solid foundation to go through what I wasn't sure I knew what I was going to go through, but I knew it would be something. And this is it right here, right now. This is it.
Just this morning, I was in my regular personal journal. I was sitting, looking out, like where I live now, like looking out at the water, the big bay right there. And I have been, over the last couple of months, I've been living in this house for 3 months, and it's like time has moved in this weird way where it's been actually quite slow, thankfully, with the exception of the last month. The last 30 days or so have just, like February just never even happened. And it's starting to make me freak out a little. And I was writing about how, like for me, I am Clifton's strengths, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
You're familiar, probably.
Yep.
My number one is, my top strength is like that I am a futurist. And when I remember learning that, it was like, oh my God, like so validating, like all of these years of my whole life, actually being actively from other people projecting on me that like being too far into the future is not the way. You got to like come back. You got to be present. You're to this, you're to that, you're to, and it's like, this is part of who I am. And yes, there is an element of, if I'm only living in the future, then I'm not experiencing the present. And this is the nature of my spiritual practice. And so much of what I try to infuse into the work with the Culture Club, and this, like, that's where the tangibility, like bringing it back to the present, so we can be thinking about the future and where we want to be, the world that we want to leave behind, but not wait till then. Like, how do we do that now? And it's not just about the work. It is about how we literally move about our days, what our relationship with time looks like, what our relationship with productivity looks like, what our relationship with our loved ones looks like. And I literally, because my Capricorn moon, like as I was journaling, literally drew a Venn diagram where it's like the present, the future, and the past, and like that in between of that overlap of where I'm always striving to get to live in that sweet spot in the middle. And I was like, okay, thinking about like where I am right now, what is the present moment for me, and why do I feel anxious about the fact that February just flew by? And I'm also living my best life for all intents and purposes. Like it took choices that Annie made in the past to get me here today. And so this, like, that relationship between what we choose to do is not about today. It is about tomorrow, next week, next year, next 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that as I was just quickly journaling, I'm like, okay, so off of my present circle, what are all the things? Off my future circle, what are all the things? Off my present, past, what are all the things? And almost everything in my present are like potential, planning. There's only a few things that are actively happening at the moment. And I'm like, oh, right. Because that is like actually how I designed this year to be, Annie. Remember, like it's like this pulse check about the choices that I made, the structures that I set up for my own business and my life were so that I could be a little more in a liminal space right now, but it's also causing me anxiety. Right. And so it's like, oh yeah, okay, like everything's okay. That's no wonder I feel a little like, whoa, it's like, because everything is in planning mode. It's like emergent, and it's not.
What a great point. That is such a valid point. Oh my gosh, same. We work so hard to create the life that we're in, but we are under constant anxiety or like, what are we going to do next? We got to make sure we're constantly planning. And you're so right. That is so true. Interesting. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. Mm-hmm.
Well, funnily enough, as far as this topic is concerned, like it's something I think about a lot, about the relationship between future and past. And as I imagine what the Women of Color Culture Club can continue to emerge and unfurl into, it is changing. I knew that I wanted it to like be my only thing. It's where I want to spend all my time. It's the people that I want to spend the most time with. It's the people that I want to co-create things with. And, it's interesting, the people that are inside of my business with me, my assistant, my bookkeeper, my collaborators have all been Culture Club members at one point or another, have come through a cohort. I feel like we're all forever, Women of Color Culture Club. But like, I'm like, wow, was that on purpose? Did Past Annie do that on purpose? I don't know, but like, it's like we're feeding each other and filling each other's cups, and it's reciprocal. And so when I imagine what it can be, that is one of the things that I'm actively working on right now, is the future of it and what it can be. Because like, it's like you go through a cohort. What I'm seeing now is like foundational, establishing like a shared understanding and language for the things and how we relate to life. And then you go start a business, or you move cities, or you leave a relationship. And it's like, okay, I kind of want to like touch back in with that group or some version of that group. And I've realized that's true for me too. And so there are things coming that will make that so much more like deepening our relationships with each other and where we are based on the moment in our lives. Sort of like a midpoint, not necessarily a full-on cohort. I'm seeing it more like ritualistic, dropping in like, what do you need right now? And maybe it's a smaller group. And I'm like dreaming it. I love to create experiences so much. So I'm dreaming into what an annual retreat can look like.
Very good.
The realities of COVID still feel present, but I'm like, we need a safe place to like arrive and like spread out our thoughts and dream into something, and then like go back to camp and do the things. That's what I'm working on. The 10th cohort, though, right now is coming up. It'll be spanning actually the time that yours did. It'll go from late April into the very first weekend in June. 6 weeks now instead of 4. That's been a Spirit was asking me to change things, and that was one of the things, like we needed a little more time. And so right now, applications are open for the 10th cohort. I probably won't do a foundational cohort again this year so that I can do these other things. So I want to just make a point to say that, because I'll post this on all the things, Facebook and Instagram and stuff. 10th cohort applications open till this Friday, March 11th. It's an intimate space where we do some things, we figure some things out. It needs something.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be a wonderful thing. Always. I look at it the as kind of I don't know how to explain it, but this space is so, I like the unstructured part because we don't feel like there is a certain way to live. There is not a certain way we have to be. There's not a certain way we have to make money. There's not a certain way, we have to relate to each other. And I think that is so important. I really like where you're headed with taking that first lesson that helped fill, I know, me up so much. And then that check-in, maybe it's annual, to say, all right, what's next? All right, what now? Okay, what worked? What did not work? What a huge relationship developer, and creating this network of, what could be lifelong support systems, that is so significant. And it's something I look around, it's not readily available, especially in COVID, but it's not readily available to people. And it's so desperately needed. Yeah, you just spoke right to my whole, the fluff, not fluffy part, but the intangible part of who I am, because I am so solid and, logical, and everything fits in a box, and, but that's really good. I think you're on the right track.
Thank you for saying that and for taking time out of your Monday.
Absolutely.
It's somebody another entrepreneur colleague, friend of mine, and I are trying to find time together. They were like, well, I'm officially on my own now, so I've got all the time, but also need to be like careful about the time, because it's like when it's very easy to be like coffee, meeting, and then you're like, when I need to do the work. So thank you for giving me a little bit of your Monday.
Of course, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else before we sign off that you want to share? You want to say? No pressure.
No,
but
I just think that, whoever might benefit from this is that whatever we're scared of, that's what we should be running towards. Conquer it. Use it as a jumping off point, because it's not the easy things that get you to these moments of inspiration, these living our best lives. It's not the comfortable parts. What we do is surround ourselves with groups like the Women of Color Culture Club to help make that journey just a little bit easier and easier to navigate, a little bit softer around the edges, but the work is in running into your fear.
Yes. I was like, this is like, I read something in Pima Chodron's Start Where You Are this morning about that. And over the weekend, I recently I binged Inventing Anna, Shonda Rhimes' series on Netflix about so good. And then I was like all over Shonda Rhimes' Instagram, and there was a post that she did, I don't know, from a couple weeks ago that was like, where it was about like the 3 things that somebody should do to like live the life that they want, or to like step forward even when they're scared. She talked about how like even when or the 3 things you should do, or the benefits of doing things when you're scared, the benefits of doing. And one of the things that she said in relationship to her 3 tips for why you should do things when you're scared is like this really, like it struck my heart, and it's deeply connected to why I do what I do. The reality that most people never do anything, which is so sad. Most people go through the motions. They don't know how to even venture outside the lines. And that is, it's heartbreaking to think Absolutely. That you could live, that I could live from the beginning to the end of my life, never really doing anything courageous or exciting or innovative from what I was told I could do.
Absolutely.
Most people don't.
1,000%. And those are the people that look at us and say, wow, you're so brave. Wow, you're so smart. Wow, you're so, this, you're so that. And I always take a step back and go, but I'm not, I mean, I appreciate the compliments, but I always say, I'm not that different from you. We have the same insecurities. We have the same fears. We have the same stresses. I'm not that different from you. I just choose how I move forward differently. That's it. I just make the scary choices. And yeah, it's terrifying on this side of it, but I'm telling you what, when I get onto the other side, I look back and go, what the heck? That was not that bad. Come on, Taura, let's keep moving forward, but
Yeah.
a lot of people just don't see that for themselves at all. They're not willing to do that. So they miss out, unfortunately.
I mean, and it's the being scared. Like there's the phrase, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yep.
Like, be an entrepreneur for 1 month. My camera is trying to calibrate. And that will teach you in a 30-day like mastermind how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It is scary. Like when you are 100% reliant on yourself to make the money, to feed yourself, to keep a roof over your head. Like there is no, well, I'll figure it out later. At least I got a paycheck coming. Like that is survival. Like they're like you can't fail. Yeah. And once you understand what it feels like to be uncomfortable, it's like, oh, okay. It's scary and it doesn't feel good, but like I know how to be here.
Right.
And I can keep moving forward anyway.
Right.
Is so powerful.
Huge.
It's such a powerful thing to realize that we can do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, people, I've heard that, like living vicariously through. When my partner and I decided to move away from New Mexico and we're full-time traveling and kind of living in the RV, and now we're here. It's like, it's also scary. Like it's still life. Like it's not like my life, but we just do it because life is going to be hard no matter where you are.
No matter what.
So why not? No matter what. Like I'd rather anyway. But if we surround ourselves with community, we recognize that, oh, I'm not alone in my fear. Somebody might have an answer to this. And also, oh, they've done the thing to, okay. Like there's context.
Yeah, that is
probably bump up to.
Yeah, that's probably the most significant thing I took from my cohort was not just I'm not alone, but I'm not the only one that feels this way. This is not unique to me. And when you realize that this is a very common thing, then you get to say, all right, well, I'm not that special. Let me go ahead and, get out of my own way and push through, because had I embarked on this journey and with the WOC Culture Club and found that I was the only person feeling that way, that would have made me step back and reevaluate as to why, what am I experiencing that's different? And, then you have a different approach. But when you realize that you're part of something that's a normal discomfort, experience, that just makes your community that much larger. Yes. And then we move on to support each other, but knowing that you're not crazy, you're not free, you're not unique in your fears is so liberating. I can't explain it. And I think this is part of a deeper conversation, probably not for this, but I think a lot of it comes from, as for me, when I was younger and being like the only person of color in a whole entire school and in a community, and, and being told what I couldn't do, what wasn't for me, it comes from that, because that I was so isolated in my racial identity that it caused me to think that I needed to limit my full identity, or as if those limitations were placed on me as a whole person. And coming out of that was terrifying. It was debilitating for a long time until I decided that was when I tried to run from the fear. And then finally I got tired. I was exhausted from running. I just stomped my foot and turned and faced it. I was like, I'm not running anymore. I'm gonna just do this. And then it's amazing how beautiful life became. So, but yeah.
We'll leave it there. It's amazing how beautiful life became.
Absolutely.
Yes. And with that, 10th Culture Club Cohort applications are open till Friday. This Friday, all the info is at mariposastrategies.com/WOC. On all the socials at Mariposa Strategies. Taura, thank you so very much. Where can people find what you do? What's your website? Yes. Let's get that in here. I'm going to add it to the things.
Yep. So my business is called the Cohesive Quotient, and that basically means the unity factor. And the website is www.cohquo.com. And then I'm also on Facebook under the Cohesive Quotient as well. So lots of great support for frontline operations level, nonprofit, humanitarian focused professionals, and organizations.